Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and thanks for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber podcast. All our past guests are up on celebrityjobber.com. Follow us on Instagram, Celebrity Jobber Podcast, and our YouTube channel, youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. What if the big break never happened? We might not know who these celebrities are. Brett Gelman, my guest this week, doesn't have the most famous name, but a pretty familiar face. If you know anything about the humongous Netflix series Stranger Things, then you'll know the character of Murray Bauman. I happen to be a big fan of Brett as he portrayed the character of Dr. Greg in the Netflix series Love, which was produced by Judd Apatow. What did Brett do before becoming a comedian and an actor? What was his first job? We'll ask him. Brett Gelman, my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Hey,
Brett.
hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm a big fan of Dr. Greg.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hopefully you don't see too much of yourself in him.
Hopefully. well, maybe that's why. What a great show Love was on Netflix. I thought, first of all, it's a Judd Apatow deal. Was that the first time you ever worked with him?
Yeah, it was. And it was always a big dream to get to work with Judd. And, to get to do that, with him as he's always present when you're on set, whether he's directing the episode or not. But, it was great to be directed by him the times that he did direct me too. It was so fun.
Was this always in the cards for you, Brett? Like, were you a small child and interested in acting and theater, or did you kind of love it or get to love it later on in life?
No, from 6 years old, it was my religion. I was completely obsessed. It's all I thought about every single day was the dream of doing this. So, yeah, it's amazing to be where I am. I'm very grateful.
So I hear your father was a photo salesman. I'm not too sure what your mom did, but how did, at 6 years old, this become your religion? What was it that made you, love this?
I saw A Night at the Opera, the Marx Brothers movie. And I was 6 years old. I didn't understand the jokes. I mean, I understood the Harpo bits. But then in listening to Groucho's voice, even though I didn't understand the actual jokes, I was too young, I knew that it was funny. And it just watching the three of them was it was like my Big Bang. It made my brain explode.
So it was like high school you got very, interested, or should I say very active in acting in theater, or was it even before that? Yeah,
no, even before. I was going to theater camp, and I was taking, all types of different acting classes. But then, once I got into high school, it had a pretty serious theater department for a high school. And so I started to learn I started to get a pretty extensive theater education. That's when we were doing monologues from Angels in America.
Right.
And then I went to North Carolina School of the Arts, which is an acting conservatory. It's a classical training program. And I got fully trained. And then from there, I left North Carolina and I went to New York, and then quickly found out I would not be getting a job anytime soon. But lucky enough, I found this comedy improv theater called the Upright Citizens Brigade.
Big.
That was just starting to get going.
Yeah.
And, I started, I started to perform there.
Were you encouraged by your parents? Were they supportive, or were they like, okay, Brett, maybe when you get to college you should, study law, or were?
No, they were very supportive. They knew that they had no other choice too, because I was like a very neurotic, worried, oftentimes unhappy kid. And that was the thing that made me happy, was this dream that I would one day become this, and then also my study of it. I was obsessed. I watched everything that I could get my hands on in order to realize that dream in my head. So, but they were always incredibly supportive. They never really doubted any of it. And even when I was, in the early days when I was struggling, they always pushed me and encouraged me to keep going.
Brett, did you have a lot of regular jobs? And I use the quotation marks when I say regular. When you were a young actor, you're living in New York, you got a gig here and a gig there. What did you do for work to support yourself?
I did a lot of different things very, very badly. I mean, I was probably the worst office temp of all time. I mean, I would go to sample sales for clothing and pretend that I was going to the bathroom every 20 minutes and not be in there. I was a very irresponsible day job haver. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Do you remember your very first job? What was your very first paying gig?
As an actor, or just job?
No, just job. You're were you in high school and you worked at McDonald's? What was your very first job?
I was a caddy. I was a caddy. And so I went to the local country club and carried around golf bags and, wanted to die. It was horrible. And it was, truly I don't know who was worse, the guys who were golfing or the other caddies, but, terrible in different ways.
I got to tell you something, Brett, whether you find this interesting or not, because I do. After 70 some odd people that I've talked to, their very first job has been a caddy. And I'm talking about Brett Baer from Fox News. I'm talking about Rich Fields from the announcer of The Price is Right, to rock star Phil Varone from Saigon Kick. First job as a caddy. So, I mean, it's like the most popular first job that there is. I find that intriguing for some reason.
Yeah, well, they'd hire anybody was the thing, because they could always just fire you, and it was a good way to get big tips. But I didn't do it for very long. I really hated it. So then my job after that was I worked at a Dairy Queen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed UNC School of Arts, not in Chapel Hill, but in Winston-Salem. I noticed the mascot, the Fighting Pickles. Is that?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't really even that aware that we even had a mascot until we had it. You hear that now and then, but it was an art school. It wasn't people weren't really getting that competitive to where they would bring out the mascot. Probably,
right.
If the mascot came out, they would just be judged for their performance.
So what do you think, Brett? Some great acting credits. We could go down the line, and of course, Stranger Things being one of the big ones. What do you consider, or do you have or consider a big break? Was there something that happened to you where everything just started rolling and you would consider that your big break? What do you think that was?
I mean, I really think, it's been a steady climb for me where I got to be in bigger and bigger. And so there's so many projects that I can point to that were sort of milestones in my climb up the ladder. But the thing that really shot me to, where I'm at now, I'd say is twofold. I think it's Stranger Things. And then also when the second season of Fleabag came out, I mean, people freaked out in the industry. It became every person in the industry's favorite show. And we won all the awards. And so that really took me to the next level. But I mean, I can cite shows things like Go On and Love and The Other Guys, that really, that definitely brought me into the public eye more, but Fleabag and Stranger Things, I think, made me famous if that's what I am.
Yes.
I mean, it depends on the day. I don't know. It depends who you talk to.
I get it. So tell me about
It's kind of a weird thing. Like, people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, are you famous?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not that famous. If I was that,
you'd know.
You wouldn't be asking me that question." Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
What about writing, Brett? Is that something that you've just like kind of acquired, a skill that you've acquired over time, or is that the part of your job that you really enjoy? And I wanted to talk about your new book.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a writer too. You know, I mean, like, my heroes were people like Mel Brooks, who did it all too. So, you know, I was always, especially I was writing sketches. You know, coming up at UCB at the Upright Citizens Brigade, I wrote a lot. You know, all the things that I was doing that was scripted, I either wrote or co-wrote, and then I've written certain shows and movies since then. But then, so I've always been a writer as well.
And this new book, this is nonfiction. I guess it's the terrifying realm of the possible, nearly true stories. Tell me a little bit about the book.
No, it's fiction. It's fiction, but there's autobiographical elements to it. I'd say there's very much me and all the characters. I mean, you know, there's aspects of like my experiences and definitely my personality in every single one of them. But it's still, there's a lot that's made up. Absolutely. It's around 5 characters, like a kid, a teenager, an adult, an older woman, and a person in the afterlife. And they're all grappling with the big questions of life in the worst way possible.
Did you ever intend this to be a show or multiple shows, or did you intend this to be a book, your first book?
No, I always intended this to be a book. Whether this could be developed into some sort of show or movie, that's possible, but that was never how I was thinking about it. I was always, just focused on writing a book.
Well, what do you think's coming up next for you? What, not specific projects that you have already, have in the works, but is there, another tier to your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, besides future acting projects, I want to write another book. I want to, develop my own show, write, direct, and star in my own movie. I'm going to start developing a podcast as well. I want to be everywhere. I want people not to ever be able to escape me.
That's pretty cool. Well, I tell you what, man.
No, it's very cool. Well, only if you like me is it cool,
Right. I would imagine people that people that aren't fond of you.
I think that's cool.
Maybe not as cool to people not fond of you. Yes.
No. I definitely have my enemies. Absolutely.
Oh, really? You've rubbed some the wrong way, if you will.
Hey, that's success, baby. The more successful you get, the more people that love you, the more people that hate you. That's how it goes.
I agree with you. The terrifying realm of the possible, nearly true stories. Brett Gelman is our guest here on Celebrity Jobber. It's been a great conversation, and really, like I said, big fan of Dr. Greg and that show Love, and was so glad to have the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. It was so great talking to you too. Thanks for taking the time.
Brett Gelman, cool guy, very funny actor, comedian. He's been in a ton of stuff. One of my favorites, the role of Dr. Greg in the Netflix series Love, which was a Judd Apatow project. I'm a big fan of Judd, and I was a big fan of that Netflix series Love. And, of course, you might know Brett from the Netflix series Stranger Things, as he played the character Murray Bauman. But it was his role of Martin on the series Fleabag that got him worldwide attention. Said he became a lot more popular with industry folks. And he said things kind of changed for him after that. always wanted to be an actor from the time he was a very young man, 6 years old. He said his father was a photo salesman, and Brett said his first job was the job of a caddy. That is by far the most famous first job of celebrity jobber. Brett Baer was a caddy. Rich Fields from The Price is Right. Saigon Kick's Phil Verone. You would think something like McDonald's would be a popular first job, but no, a golf caddy. And thank goodness for Brett hitting it big, because he said he had a lot of jobs. You know, when he was younger, a starving actor / comedian, and he said he was awful at all of them. Check out Brett's new book, The Terrifying Realm of the Possible, Nearly True Stories. It is fiction with some autobiographical content. I have a feeling some pretty big things are ahead for Brett Gelman. Very funny man. All past guests you can find on CelebrityJobber.com. You can follow the podcast on Instagram, Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Also the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@CelebrityJobber. And of course, streaming on all platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. Please give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. That would be great. Thanks so much for listening to the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. And once again, until next time, I'm Jeff Zito.